Hello, students, and welcome to this session on how to analyze your AIMCATs effectively for two specific purposes that I will cover, which is the agenda and the focus for the small talk today. One is the impact it has on the strategy that you follow in the subsequent attempt or a further mock practice that you might take back at home or an upcoming AIMCAT and eventually all the training for the CAT. So therefore, what are the strategy changes and the correct discussions instead of knee-jerk reactions or twitching elbow reactions in terms of last time maths did not go well or I did not get my geometry questions correct. So geometry is my weak point. I would not attempt geometry deliberately in the next AIMCAT. So these kind of immature reactions should not happen. There are clear-cut strategy improvements and understandings vis-a-vis your capability and performance. Second point that I'll compare and discuss in detail today is what impact does the AIMCAT analysis have on your ability to recognize different difficulty levels and need to fill up the gaps in your preparation. So what do you learn from a given AIMCAT and the variety of the surprise or the difficulty level it throws at you? And then how should you customize your upcoming preparation vis-a-vis that awareness? Now, obviously, there might be some difficulties or some areas or some loopholes or weaknesses that you might not be able to finish in a span of just straightforward 7 days. So it is possible that some weaknesses that we recognize might be systemic, a part of maybe a long-term weakness or a long-term, ignoring of the weakness or the performance or lack of revising a particular topic. So some weaknesses, even if you recognize today, might not get overcome in the upcoming 7 day window before the next MCAT happens. But at least we are aware that we are not winning this entire career race and selection and a competitive examination purely from the point of view of next 7 days horizon and the next MCAT. We are looking at the CAT, which is 75 days away from now, for example, middle of September till end of November. So let's get started. First thing about strategy for a test is when we talk about strategy, we are not discussing things like how to learn better concepts in geometry or functions and graphs, how to do justice to an RC passage which had. We are not discussing preparation. In strategy, preparation is strategy. All we are saying is for a given question paper that we saw at a point in time on the screen as we went through it section by section, did we extract the best with our existing skill and ability at that point in time? After the paper is over, you should not have grievances where there would be questions that are available, but you did not judge them properly. Should have picked those questions, or maybe questions that you did pick up, but they became bad experiences for you. So, from a strategy point of view, an INCAT analysis help you understand what are the instinctive reactions you go through when you go through the section question by question. The way a question looks familiar, you feel very confident or excited about picking it up. But do you have a bad experience later on where you discover that question should not have been picked up? So there are two, three ways to analyze this reaction and how this learning and this growth in maturity after the INCAT analysis, when the whole paper is available and you can see the remaining questions, you can look at the solutions, look at the mistakes you made, the excessive time that you spent, and therefore decide that next time when a paper happens or when you practice a mock or next INCAT and eventually in the CAT, these are the things that you tend to do which become a bad judgment later on. So you become more aware of the things which are strategy mistakes. So for example, out here clearly we say for a given preparation, what is the best score that you can achieve? Very good, you might not achieve a very high score. So that's a second part of my talk. Looking at trend lines of couple of AIMCATs. How can as of preparation, given especially the occasion that we are at right now, 75 days only are remaining for the CAT. So you might have your job, you might have your college life, some of you might be droppers. So you're preparing for a CAT as a repeat attempt. So you would have your own of how many hours in the day and what weaknesses, what pending material, what topics, how many theory booklets do you really open up and prepare. So if the weaknesses are huge in terms of lack of knowledge or the skill, then we will talk about that part of preparation also. But because there might be too many booklets and too many reference materials, too many online resources, so we need to be systematic about what is it that is most applicable to me. and what is it that I can see from my AIMCAT analysis that will help me do preparation. And like I verbally explained, that you should not go through this experience of opportunities missed after the AIMCAT analysis or if the AIMCAT is over, so that for a given paper, for a given preparation, you maximize your attempts and you are fairly accurate in what you are attempting. Now, obviously, there is a point on the slide that I spoke about that weak preparation cannot lead to a very high score. So, if there are a lot of math chapters you are weak at, or there are certain types of reasoning problems you are just not very good with, then it is impossible to really have a strategy which decidedly gets you a 99.5 percentile score and get general category calls of IIM, ABCL kind of variety. So clearly there is an impact of AIMCAT analysis on the preparation plan that you build up for. And many topics are interrelated. If ratio proportion in mathematics or componendo, dividendo and continued proportions are a problem, then it might manifest itself in a question in AIMCAT that you might be analyzing and discovering that it was too difficult. But it was not a problem of time, speed and distance and time and work from which the question came. It was a problem of ratio, proportion and variations, because at that half stage of the question you did not know how to proceed further. So you were not mathematically sure of the method to be followed. So therefore, what preparation advice can we draw from an AIMCAT? Second thing is, a lot of students, I am a faculty member at Time myself, so for more than 2 decades now. So we have seen students during the ending stages of CAT preparation coming back after AIMCATs by saying that when I solve questions at home, I am able to solve them, but during an AIMCAT, I am not able to solve them. Or sometimes they talk about, I'm able to understand the concept. When I look at an AIMCAT solution, there is nothing very difficult for me to understand in that AIMCAT solution. But why is it that in an AIMCAT, when I see the question for the first time, I'm not able to do that on the spot in limited time, or I take too much time, things like these. So therefore, there is this unending debate in the minds of so many bright candidates like you who would feel that I have much higher potential, but my performance is not matching that potential. So there is this feeling of dissatisfaction and frustration that eats away a certain part of your daily routine because you're not very happy with the outcome that happened in an AIMCAT result last week. So therefore, there are 2 points I would like to bring to this comparison so that we are correct in comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So one is that when we look at AIMCAT questions or analysis or difficult level material back at home, are we really tracking ourselves properly on a sectional time limit? Does it match the difficulty level of an AIMCAT, and are we clocking ourselves on per question time limits or a sectional time limit of 40 minutes, which is what, let's say, this year's CAT is going to be? Second is that the difficulty level of the study material sources that you might have, coaching class booklets or any online resource or previous year questions. So many students are fans of CAT previous year questions, PYQs. Does it match the level of difficulty that the current AIMCATs are designed for? Because current AIMCATs would be able to capture the trend lines of the evolving CAT. Just 2 years ago, for example, the CAT DILR section was very difficult. Even the quant section was very difficult. Even doing 10 questions correctly got you a 99.5, 99.6 percentile in the quant section. But last year's CAT quant became slightly moderate in terms of doability. So the same category percentile jumped to an effective attempt of 13 to 14 questions being done correctly. So when you look at a previous paper or a test series of an older year or a booklet that is a collection of so-called difficult questions, but does it match the level of difficulty in the trend line direction in which the AIMCATs are training you, given the recent trend lines of the CAT? So if these two are not matching, then plenty of times we'll go through this dissonance between my potential is so much, but my weekend AIMCAT performance is not that high. So be careful about comparison of these apples to apples or apples to oranges kind of an experience. Uh, let's start with the main theme of today, which is the AIMCAT analysis process. There are multiple mistakes in the so-called competitive examination scenario that you should be aware about. The first thing is that we generally are most bothered about the questions that we get wrong. Obviously, this is a question that you have chosen in an AIMCAT. Uh, this is a question that you attempted, and most of the times you were confidently attempting it. You had a logic or a method. You had the confidence of reading that question or eliminating the options in that RC passage. You thought you understood it well. You thought you went back to the passage to differentiate between the paragraphs, how to compare the two close options of the RC. These are the questions you have attempted. So we have a greater sense of dissatisfaction when such a question goes wrong. So everybody does what I'm showing on the screen out here called type 1 error. Everybody analyzes the type 1 error because I attempted a question. Why did it go wrong? I'd like to cross check myself in terms of did I make an understanding error or a comprehension error? Did I make a logical or a calculation or a silly mistake? So this is something everybody does. You should do it. Without doubt, we recommend it. But because in an examination like the CAT and similarly in the AIMCAT, your percentile or ranking depends on what other people do. So in a very easy examination, if out of 10 questions you do 8 or 9 correctly, you might feel happy about that success. But that might not still lead to a very top percentile because it's an easy exam. A lot of bright people in the country might be doing 10 out of 10 correctly. So it is not enough to just analyze exactly what you did right and wrong. It is also important to understand what the other people are doing. And what the other people are doing, are they doing more and better than you? So it's important to look at the questions that you did not attempt. Now, this is where there are two categories that I'm mentioning at the in the slide right now. You can see type 2 error. The questions that you attempted, but the majority of other people left out. Now, obviously, this is not a type 1 error because type 1 is where you got it wrong. And this, so why should this be a mistake? No, it is not a mistake, but why is it a subject point of analysis? What the time that I consumed while doing these questions correctly, but I discover in many of these questions, let's say there are 10 questions in a section. When you do AIMCAT analysis, where you find you have done the 10 questions correctly. But out of those 10 questions, there are 5 questions which majority of the other people in the country are leaving out. They are not shortlisting them. They are not picking them up. They are not spending time on that question. So if you got it correctly, you'll be happy. Other people are not doing it and I'm doing it and I'm getting 3 marks per question. But at what cost? So then we look at the time consumption behavior. We look at how much time did it take to do that question correctly, to do that DILR caselet correctly. Plenty of times we pick up a question because of familiarity, because of emotional leanings. For example, let's say if I am a CAT aspirant and I'm good with Venn diagram, set theory, maxima, minima, at least at most variety of questions and caselets. So when that caselet comes, I tend to be excited about it because I have practiced it a lot and I want to pick it up. But during the solving process, even if I get it right, because I'm midway in that caselet and I get stuck somewhere, I don't feel like leaving it. I continue giving more and more time to it. Eventually, I am able to solve it, so I am happy, but I am giving disproportionate time to that caselet. So if I find a DILR caselet or an screens today, which will give you an idea of how to compare yourself with the rest of the country. I'm doing it fairly quickly, there's no problem. But the moment I find I'm taking excessive time in terms of what I expected when I picked that question, and I eventually solved that question, I got 3 marks, but at what cost? I gave 2 minutes extra for those 4 5 quant questions. I gave 7 8 minutes disproportionately ahead of my expectation in that DILR caselet. So at what? At cost. So why is this important? You got it right. Even if you gave it more time, you got it right. But the point is, in that same time, your competitors and rest of the AIMCAT takers, they could have done more questions and gotten more marks than you. So you spent 2 minutes extra, let's say, in couple of maths questions. Let's say 4 questions. So you have an excessive time consumption of maybe 7 8 minutes horizon. In those 8 minutes, they are able to locate and attempt other questions which are less time consuming. So they attempt 5 questions now. So you are happy about doing 4 questions correctly, even at the cost of extra time, but you are lagging behind the competition because they have done 5 questions now. So this is how percentiles get differentiated. Your absolute score is of no meaning to me as long as you are not in the top percentile range of performance. The IIMs and the catalytic colleges, there's so many good private colleges which take the CAT score at 80 percentile, 85 percentile, 90 percentile, 95%. To start falling down in the percentile, it is purely because comparatively somebody else is scoring more than you. So in AIMCAT analysis, we pay special attention to not only our mistakes, but also the questions that we have done correctly if we have taken excessive time. Especially when we look at what percentage of people are not even attempting that question. So the paper was the same for everybody. I also scanned the section. I shortlisted some caselets, some questions, some passages. Other people also did the same job, but they did not spend time on this. They spent time on something else. So this is type 2 error. This is one type of analysis I strongly recommend you look at, especially for candidates who are in the range of 75, 80, 85, 90 percentile, because you want to push to the next 10 percentiles. The 85 guy wants to become a 95 guy, wants to become a 99 guy. A 99 guy wants to become a 99.5 guy. So therefore, for a 99 percentiler, just now for an example, even a 1% difference in terms of top performers deliberately not choosing that question can be important. For a 70 percentiler, if you find that 30 to 40% of the rest of the AIMCAT takers did not even pick up this question, why did I pick this? Did I take enough normal amount of time? Did I take excessive amount of time? So if you get a negative feedback from that behavior, then you understand that the 30-40% people in the AIMCAT who did not take this question, they spent time wisely somewhere else, because I spent time on this question, I got it right, but I gave excessive time. That is how 30% people ahead of me are ahead of me. That's why I am at 70 percentile and other people are at 75, 80, 85, 90 percentile. So this is an important point. The third point is self-explanatory. In the same line, now all of you can very easily understand what I mean by type 3 error. The questions that I did not even attempt. So obviously what I attempted can either go wrong or can either go right. So both these analysis points are covered in type 1 and type 2 error that I'm showing on the screen. Now look at type 3 error. I did not attempt, but I find a lot of other people are attempting and getting it right. So they are getting +3 for a question that I deliberately left out during scanning and during my movement in the for this question. It did not ring a bell of my skills to really pick it up for the type of DILR caselet that happened on the screen that time. So I left it out. Perfectly all right. At that point in time, that judgment is not a bad judgment at all. I fully agree with you. When you don't recognize a question or a logic or a familiarity issue, you leave behind that question. But if you find that a lot of other people are doing it, then clearly they are getting marks out of something that you are incapable of. Let's have the honesty to look at ourselves in the mirror very clearly. It's a competitive exam of more than 3 lakh are writing these exams every year, like exam like CAT. So, even a 30-40% difference in behavior like this can have a massive impact on the percentiles you can eventually get. So, if it is a question everybody is leaving behind, left it because everybody recognized the high difficulty or lack of familiarity, then there is no problem. That is not called an error. Every question you are leaving behind is not a mistake. Only those questions you are leaving behind is a mistake. This is error when other people are doing it. So let's say you are an 80 percentiler person and you find that there are quite a few questions in your list of unattempted ones in the given AIMCAT. Let's say 5-6 questions. There are 5-6 questions which are attempted and solved correctly by 30-35% people, 25% people. Now you are at 80 percentile. 20% of AIMCAT takers are ahead of you. And there are 20 to 30% people getting such questions correctly which you are not choosing because you don't have enough speed to reach that question during the 40 minutes, or you saw that question but it appeared a bit lengthy, difficult, or you did not know the method. So other people know something that you don't know. And that is how you are getting stuck at 80 percentile. Other people are at 85, 90, 95, 99. So these three types of analysis we have to do. And every AIMCAT would give you a different set of feedback items. So it's not that you will do this analysis only for the latest AIMCAT that has happened right now. In fact, you can pick this up and I'm going to show you the AIMCAT analysis pages that you see when you log into the TIME portal, how you can analyze and understand some of these things for the recent AIMCAT that have happened in the last 2-3 months also. Plus, you must definitely do this activity for an upcoming AIMCAT whenever the analysis option is available. Now, students, this is one of the AIMCAT analysis tabs. When you log into your student homepage, you click on the AIMCATs, you get that entire grid of AIMCATs. Some of them have already happened, some of them are going on, some of them are yet to happen. When you look at the results and analysis checkbox, then a lot of windows, another tab opens. Now on those tabs, there are headers at the top. One of the headers I'm showing at the bottom, look at this. I'm circling at the bottom of my screen right now. Performance snapshot. So generally people look at scorecard. Scorecard tab gives you the summary, rights and wrongs and accuracy and percentile and total score percentile and sectional percentile, all India rank, city rank, you get all that. Scorecard is something all of you see. But I would like you to see the something called performance snapshot. What is a performance snapshot? It shows what is your attempting behavior vis-a-vis the difficulty map of the question. So questions are categorized into multiple types of difficulty levels. Something called very difficult, something called moderate, something called easy, something called very easy. Every AIMCAT might have different proportion of number of difficult questions, number of easy questions, number of moderate questions. And that's the part of the training in the variations that the CAT also throws. Year to year, and within the same year of the CAT, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3. Not everything is absolutely equal. So you should be trained to be able to understand the difficulty of the questions and choosing them wisely as per your capability and confidence and knowledge levels. Now, when we give you this particular map, whose analysis is this difficulty map? Who says it's difficult? For me, geometry might be very easy because I'm a champion faculty member in geometry, but maybe functions and graph might not be very easy because I have not taught that subject for many, many years now. So suddenly a moderate question of function graphs can look very difficult to me. And a difficult question of geometry can look very easy to me. Same thing can happen with you also. The chapters and the topics and the areas that you are very skilled with, you tend to pick them up irrespective of the difficulty challenges so many times. So this difficulty map is from the point of view of the experts who design the AIMCAT collection of questions. They look at time consumption. They look at uniqueness of the concepts involved in solving that question. They look at interrelationships between the concepts. For example, ratio proportion is combined with the time, speed, and distance. And the time, speed, distance race was also on a triangular closed circuit track. So number theory, LCM, HCF models will also come into picture. How many times on a closed loop, so many people will overtake each other again. So many things might be at play. So they look at the entire concept behind the DILR caselet or the quant question or the confusing nature of the RC or the way the options are worded. And they call a question difficult, very difficult, easy, moderate. Now, when you attempt it, that time you are going purely by your hunch feel. You look at a question, you make a split-second decision during the AIMCAT, and you decide to pick that question up immediately. You don't have too much time to think and mull over it and then decide, do I feel very confident now I want to do it? You don't do it like that. So you take a split-second decision when the screen appears in front of you. Do I pick this RC or not? Do I pick this verbal question or not? Do I take this quant question or not? But when the AIMCAT gets over, when you get the right, wrong, and the analysis, you should look at this particular tab on the analysis. It tells you from the point of view of the difficulty level understanding of the expert. And obviously, all of you have caliber of people who design the AIMCATs at time. So from their understanding of what they call what were the questions I was doing, questions and getting them wrong? Or am I picking up the easy questions and getting them right? So am I smart in my question scanning and selection strategy? During the 40-minute navigation of the section, the behavior that I show, am I on the right side? So the colors out here. If I show you an orange color on the screen, it shows a question that is unattempted. If I show you a green color square on the screen, it is a question green, it is correct. If I show you a red color question on the screen, then that particular question is wrongly attempted by you, but you got it wrong. For example, this particular map is given for DILR also, and it is given for quant also. So if you look at the horizontal row-like structure of this particular image, you'll be able to see this. Now, take an example candidate, and I'm going to give an example of analysis of verbal RC. This is from a current year AIMCAT candidate of one of our centers. So in English section, this particular person has done the easy questions correctly, and there were some medium level questions where some of them he has attempted in green, but some of them are not attempted at all. So this is a missed opportunity. Compare that to, there were a couple of difficult questions in English, question number 14 and question number 16, and one very difficult question in English, question number 22. So these questions you have attempted, but you have gotten them wrong. So these questions you have attempted and now you have gotten them wrong. So instead of that, was there scope during your 40-minute navigation of this AIMCAT? You should once again open the AIMCAT. and go through the VARC section and look at this question number 9, 20, and 23. Look at this medium label. Question number 9, not attempted. Question number 20, not attempted. Question number 23, not attempted. Now, maybe they are part of an RC or a verbal question or singular verbal question or a part of a chain of four. It's not called difficult or very difficult. Why did you not do it? Did you read that question and you thought it was difficult? Why do you think it is difficult? And why does an expert think that it is moderate? It is not that difficult. So therefore, there is this map that you can compare across the board in terms of DILR, VRC, and quant. If you find you are tending to pick up the difficult and very difficult questions and you are getting them wrong, not a good idea. Picking up the difficult and very difficult variety of questions in the sections, at what cost? Are you missing out on the easy and the very easy questions labeled in that section when you are navigating? Then it is foolishness, because a question is easy or difficult because of the time consumption it takes in terms of solving, because of the lengthy nature of question, slow reading involved, multiple arguments in that RC paragraph, or too many scenarios to be built in the DILR calculator. So eventually everything gets solved. When you see the AIMCAT solutions, eventually you are able to understand and see the solution and solvability of every single question. But when you picked up a question but you did not do it, that means at that point in time, you did not have enough theoretical knowledge to be able to react and pick it up. So that points to a preparation problem, that there are easy questions or moderate questions in the eyes of the AIMCAT expert, but I am regularly missing them out, couple of them in every section, because that appears undoable to me. That appears difficult to me. That should not happen. So this is one analysis I would want all of you to always do. This is instinctive. Plenty of times, whenever we are weak with preparation, we might also not have the ability to judge the question difficulty. If somebody has not prepared coordinate geometry and trigonometry, for an example, and let's say a very easy question comes in coordinate geometry and trigonometry, then in that particular case, you would then not even fathom the difficulty. You would just look at the topic, and lack of familiarity itself will make you skip that question. But it might be a direct application of a trigonometric identity or a formula. And therefore, that's an easy question in the eyes of rest of the country or maybe the AIMCAT experts. But for you, it's a difficult question. You're leaving it behind. Second analysis that we give you further for every single AIMCAT is what I'm highlighting out here, area-wise feedback. Area-wise feedback. I'm giving you a screen of VRC, for example, right now. So, questions that you have attempted in that AIMCAT. This is for VRC, screen example. And questions you got wrong in critical reasoning. What variety of questions are you getting wrong? So out here, you'll be able to see this is critical reasoning inference based. And total number of questions in critical reasoning were 7. Out of which the ones you attempted are these, and 2 were very difficult and you got them wrong. There is one moderate question also you got it wrong. But there are questions of difficult nature that you left out. Now, the questions that you left out, moderate or difficult, if these are the questions you are leaving out, if it is moderate or difficult, not a big problem. But questions you are attempting, despite questions being labeled as difficult or very difficult. So, and you're getting it wrong. So that should not be a case. So out here, green and red basically mean good judgment and right judgment. On this screen, what I'm showing is not about getting it right or wrong. On this screen analysis, we tell you whether you were judicious in picking up or not. So if you're attempting it and the question is shown in green, that's a good judgment. If you're attempting it and question is shown in red, then it's bad judgment. So if you are equally skilled in all areas of VARC or equally skilled in DILR, equally skilled in quant, all chapters, then for you, the paper attempt should be non-emotional. You should be able to do justice to the type of question depending on the absolute difficulty it presents to you. So for example, there are questions on para summary. There were 3 questions in this AIMCAT. And you attempted a question and it was supposed to be attempted from the point of view of AIMCAT experts. And you left out some questions and it was supposed to be left out from the point of view of AIMCAT experts. So both the judgments are in green. So it's perfectly all right. Similarly, you can look at in DILR. So there was a bar chart caselet and you left out this caselet, and that was good judgment. There was a table caselet and you left out this entire caselet, that is also a good judgment in terms of leaving out. Sorry, this is in red, so this would be bad judgment. So these are all moderate questions. They are labeled as M. This is M, this is M, this is M. So in fact you should have picked it up. You should have picked it up. But let's look at the last caselet, which is on the Venn diagram. So Venn diagram caselets, all the questions are marked as difficult. They are marked as D, and you left this entire caselet. So this is good judgment. So green judgment left out is a good thing, but red color left out is a bad thing. It's a bad judgment for you. You should have picked up this particular caselet. When you see the solutions, plenty of times you realize this, that this was much more doable. This is getting solved in the AIMCAT solution so fast, so I should have picked it up. Similarly in quant, and you can do this chapter by chapter. So eventually you will be able to know which one, for example, numbers, which one is green, which one is red. Go back to these questions. Try and recollect just a couple of days ago when you were writing this AIMCAT, what was your instinctive behavior in reaction into this. So this is one thing that you should do. Then another very important point that I spoke in the beginning of my today's live session was, how do you see your behavior with respect to rest of the country? So this is where we look at time taken analysis. So let me look at a question that you have not attempted. If you look at the screen, I am highlighting question number 4 here. Question number 4, correct answer was B. It came from the section of VARC, and people who attempted this question were close to 60% of the AIMCAT takers, and out of those 60%, 65% of those 60% got it right. So 60% of 60%, let's say 38%. 38% of the people in the country attempted this particular question in VRC. And for you, this has been marked as not attempted. This is not attempted by you. And this is time spent by the other people and those who answered correctly. So 92. So you spent 100 seconds on this RC and you still did not do this question. But 30% people took only 92 seconds and got it correct. Remember this column at the end. By those who solved correctly. Look at the blue part that I'm highlighting on the screen right now. Rightmost top right hand tab. So you compare your behavior with others' behavior, and you do it for so many missed opportunities. All the questions which are marked as NA. Look at this fourth column from the top in the blue bar. My answer. So whenever my answer is NA, not attempted, not attempted, not attempted, this is the type 3 error. What is the rest of the country doing in this? How many people are doing that? What is my percentile? Am I at 70 percentile? 30% people are ahead of me. What is my VRC sectional percentile? Let's say my VRC sectional percentile is 70. 30% people are ahead of me. And I find many questions like this where the multiplications of people attempting and getting it correct gives me close to 30% people getting it correct. And I am not doing it. So these are the analysis items you should do. Similarly in quant, so many things can be done. For example, let's look at a question number 5 in quant. You got it wrong. It is shown in red. Okay. Then very few people picked up this question. This question was marked difficult. This is the difficulty level of that question. This is the column of difficulty level. But the people who picked up this question, 1/4 of the AIMCAT takers, 65% of that got it correct. You picked it up, you got it wrong. Let's compare with how much time did you take to eventually solve this? 94 seconds. And people who got it correct took decidedly more time than you. So are you being too hasty in a question? Are you making a mistake in a question that you consciously picked up, even though it's difficult? But to solve it confidently, maybe you need to cross-check a couple of more things. Did you assume some scenario? Did you come under the psychological pressure of the clock on your hand or on the computer screen that I need to rush to another course in red color? Then you understand that, you have not cleared the cutoff. But not clearing the cutoff can happen at an 80% section also, and not clearing the cutoff can happen at a 70, 30, 40 percentile also. So the impact on your preparation can be different depending on in a particular section. So let's look at section 1 for this particular example. If I look at the VRC percentiles, very low. So the candidate is regularly writing AIMCATs, but the English decidedly very weak. But if I look at the DILR performance, then clearly you have missed, but you have missed them not only 77, 78. You have also gotten 95 percentile many times, 73, 74. So the problem in DILR might be more about certain types of caselets and some speed improvement. You might not be fundamentally weak with all types of reasoning problems and all that. But in English, there's a decidedly overwhelming focus needed in terms of reading habits or practice or vocabulary or the way you interpret arguments in your mind. So considerable amount of time will go in preparation in English. It's not about practicing one more mock cat, one more AIMCAT or a previous year AIMCAT or a previous year CAT. Every test will give you a feedback on your current preparation status. It doesn't improve your performance. So writing more tests can improve strategy, question scanning, time distribution mechanisms, and improve your fundamental skill and knowledge levels. So if you find a decided weakness in one of the areas, it will decidedly take more time. Let's look at the maths percentile behavior of this particular student snapshot. So 50 percentile, 40 percentile, 20 percentile. So mathematics also takes a lot of preparation. Now, given this particular example screen, DI reasoning shows that the candidates is not unintelligent, is able to solve to a large extent many caselets. But in mathematics, a lot of conceptual improvement is needed because there are so many chapters and so many topics. And English is basically a game of skill. So the more you read and more you critically debate and analyze in your mind, and the practice also of the booklets and study material that you do, and then you keep writing the mocks and all these things to improve. Look at another example where somebody's DI reasoning is fairly decent, but is missing in MCAT's English with a lot of fluctuation, and mathematics is not very weak, but still, there is decided scope of improvement. Now, when you see such snapshots for yourself, that is what I meant at the beginning of my live session. What preparation do you decide? That is a function of which topics are you letting go of in your AIMCAT analysis. So when you discover, which subject questions you're leaving behind, which type of DI reasoning you left, but that was recommended, it was moderate set of questions, which type of English questions you are picking up but you're getting it wrong, you need more practice. So this kind of AIMCAT analysis points to certain types of exercises that you can pick up in time, advanced booklets and material especially. For those of you online, you get them in ebooks. For those of you who are offline students, you get them in your centers in the physical booklet format. So this is how you can decide how far away am I, what kind of mistakes I'm making, and in a reasonably tight schedule in your daily routine, because you might have your colleges going on, you might have your training and placement activities going on in engineering college, you might already be a working executive. So you might not have the entire 12, 14 hours available ideally. So you have to be very, very intelligent about which booklet, which exercise, which type of question. So it might not be feasible to solve all the possible mock tests and all the possible booklets and all the possible reference booklets. So you should be smart about how far are you missing it by. These screens basically end up showing another example. Summary performances. Nobody is thoroughly weak in quant, every chapter, every topic. Nobody is thoroughly bad with English. Every time everything goes wrong. No, it doesn't work like that. You need to find out through AIMCAT analysis, and not just one AIMCAT, multiple AIMCATs, to be able to then see what should be your preparation, which exercise, what type of reading habit, what type of verbal exercise. Is it theme summary? Is it critical reasoning in terms of statements and conclusions? Is it more about sentence placement? Am I making mistakes because of vocabulary, meaning, and translation in my mind? So there might be some theoretical input needed to improve vocabulary. So that week after week by just randomly thinking of the next time, this alone might not be enough. Strategy improvement is needed, but AIMCAT analysis can also point out to what kind of preparation inputs you need. So for example, this is a good slide of a person who's performing very well. If I look at the total percentile, this person is getting 99s and 98s and 97s and 99s fairly regularly. But here also, there are learnings possible once in a while. In some AIMCATs, you have not done well in DI reasoning. So there might be tremendous input on what mistakes happen. If such a mistake happens in the CAT, then however good you were in a coaching class test, so you would like to do the AIMCAT analysis to find out a bad judgment in scanning, question selection, or logical mistakes. Maybe you need to go back to drawing board for certain types of DILR caselets. Maybe you are good with pie charts and bar graph and sitting arrangements and games and tournaments, but you are bad with the truth tellers and liars, binary logic. So some fundamentals might need improvement in some of those unique caselets that appear in an AIMCAT as a surprise factor once in a while. That is why once in a while in an AIMCAT you are not doing well. Things like these. So this is how AIMCAT analysis should be done, and each one of you is a different individual. There is no need to copy n number of famous interviews and magazine articles and exactly what your friend in the senior batch did, because you might not really have exactly the same characteristics. So if you analyze properly, you would have an ability to charter out your own residual 70-75 days to the CAT right now, and therefore not panic. Don't expect quick fire results in the next 1 week itself, because once you are aware of your weakness, you know how much time it will take to overcome that part of preparation or that part of practice or that part of speed improvement. In terms of sequence of post AIMCAT activities, I'm coming to the end of my talk. Then I will take some of the questions. I'll open the chat window. Whatever questions you guys have raised in limited time, whatever best I'm able to answer, I'll do that. So first of all, attempt the unattempted questions first. Self-realization of the improvement that you could have had in your own performance in a given test is the biggest of the learnings. So rather than anybody else telling you that look at this question, you did not do it, it was so easy, you should be able to discover it yourself. So first thing we tell all our students is that all the questions that you left behind or you scanned or you thought they were difficult or tricky, was the judgment right? Was it that difficult? Was it so tricky? Why don't you do it right now? Give yourself the same 15-minute horizon for a apparently difficult DILR caselet. Give yourself that same 3.5-4 minutes for an apparently difficult quant question that you left behind, and then we'll see. Did you have the knowledge or not have the knowledge? You were right in leaving it behind. Or it was solvable. It looked difficult on the face of it. That means you still do not have the judgment ability to decide the difficulty level by quickly reading it during the test. So there were questions that you could find out for yourself, which were solvable, but you left them behind. That's the first thing, unattempted. What you should do first, what you should do second, what you should do once again, without seeing solution. So you discover a question again, you attempt that verbal question again, and then you realize yourself that now I answer. What I marked went wrong, but now I'm getting a different answer. So if you get some questions like that, that means you did not make a logical error or you did not make a calculation error when you are repeat attempting it. So when you are repeat attempting it, you are able to do it correctly. So there is some kind of behavioral control in terms of concentration, focus, not panicking during the exam, because of which maybe a misunderstanding happens, loss of comprehension happens, or a silly mistake or a calculation happens. So you got it wrong, fully all right. But discover the change needed in your methodology to approach these questions when you get it correct, when you solve it on your own. And then you refer to the solutions for the wrong answers or the unsolvable ones, because even in this point one on the slide, there are unattempted questions. You would attempt them again. There's no guarantee that you will solve them. Maybe they were genuinely difficult. So then you will see the solutions. So seeing the solutions is the last step in AIMCAT analysis. That is not the first step. And this kind of analysis, students, that I've just now shown to you for every AIMCAT. And let me tell you, as a teacher, I've been training and writing the CAT for last 19 years now. 5 to 6 hours for a thoroughly good analysis, which can lead to specific pinpointed items and the schedules that you will follow or the indicators for your next week, next fortnight, next month. So 5 to 6 hours would definitely go into this. So this brings me to the end of this slide. What I'll do right now is I'll just quickly look at the questions that some of you have raised on the chat while this live session is going on. Answer some of them. Sir, I have previous year AIMCAT soft copy. How to utilize them? Um, I do not know how you get access to these things, but then to utilize them, first of all, uh, the difficulty level of a previous year AIMCAT would be keeping in mind the expectations of that year's CAT. So a lot of variations might be there. So you might not be able to compare your performance and outcomes in the older AIMCATs always exactly in tune with what this year's expectations are. So you would definitely need help of some people who have knowledge of the older year AIMCAT cutoffs and high percentiles and ranks. But in terms of analyzing the difficulty of the question and all that stuff, some parts you can do out here. You would not get the student login benefits in older AIMCATs, like the ones I've showed you right now, how you can analyze time spent per question and percentage of people attempting and not attempting that question. So that part of analysis you might not be able to do. What is your opinion of the ideal percentile that students in AIMCATs get, usually in the actual examination, who end up getting 99.5 percentile? Um, in my tracking of our several years, AIMCATs at the top end of the performance are slightly more concentrated with top performers than the actual CAT. That is how time gets overwhelming majority of IM calls. So I would say something in the range of 98.5 to 99.5. We have seen this category of students decidedly jump beyond 99 and beyond 99.6 and 7 in the actual CAT. So there is a clear improvement when you write the CAT. Though the proportionality of this jump is different for different range of AIMCAT performances right now. So an 80 percentiler might get a much higher jump. Supposedly I'm good in quants, and when giving AIMCAT, I feel that DILR sections will get bad. But coming to scores, DILR, how to overcome this problem? So you feel you are good with mathematics and not so good with DILR, but when you see your absolute scores, your DILR scoring is very good and your quant score is not that good. When you see you are good with quant but not with DILR, that's your absolute judgment. I will, as a teacher and neutral observer, when I train my students, when I see thousands of them every year, I would say how you perform percentile is the indicator of how good you are. It is not about getting 8 questions right out of 10 in quant. You might be very good at quant, but that 8 out of 10 is still not getting you the high percentile. You are stuck at 95 percentile. But in DILR, because caselets are difficult, you do only 2 caselets out of 4 and you might still get a 99 percentile. So I would say your DILR is better than quant, because in quant you are getting 95 percentile, in DILR you are getting 99. So quant you are getting 95, DILR getting 99. So clearly, your personal biases and judgments are not important. How you are in the eyes of the CAT scorecard of the IM professor holding it in his hand, that is the important thing. And that's where only the percentile matters. Your absolute strength in each area is immaterial to them. How it comes in your own mind. Should we attempt previous year question as a whole test of 2 hours, and how many years of PYQ should be done? Previous year CAT papers are just a reflection of the difficulty level of that year. So 10 years ago, the pattern was very different. The length of RCs in 2018-19 were decidedly longer than what current recent years CATs have been. 2 years ago, the level of DILR was humongously difficult compared to last year's CAT. So every year's CAT is a good exposure in terms of variation that you can anticipate, while nobody, neither you nor I, am a Jyotishi or a fortune teller to predict this year's difficulty. So you should always take the experience of previous year CAT papers with a pinch of salt, and then try and understand through some internet resource. You can go to Time website and look at the CAT analysis of that particular year's CAT. When you try, let's say previous year CAT, CAT 2020, CAT 2022, CAT 2023, go to the Time website, look at the analysis, look at the percentile predictor and those cutoffs and analysis, and then look at your performance with respect to that. So if that particular difficulty or pattern was experienced by you when you did a previous year CAT paper, then what kind of performance would have been good enough to get a 90, 95, 85, 99, 99.5? That is what you can do. My syllabus has not been completed, but when I attempt an AIMCAT, what are the points I must keep in mind? So for those of you who are still finishing your training or syllabus in a coaching class, especially with time. So if you are part of a later batch and some topics are yet pending, then obviously when you look at an AIMCAT, you are not looking at the entire section as your expertise. So when you scan itself, you will be able to find certain types of DILR caselets which are absolutely alien to you. Certain types of math topics where you have not built theoretical base at all because those topics have yet not been taught. So then in that case, instead of the 20 odd questions in quant, maybe you will scan and select from the remaining 14 questions because only 7, 8 chapters have been taught to you or you have practiced. Out of DILR, maybe 4 or 5 caselets, only 3 caselets look familiar to you and you will rack your brains only in that. So mentally don't feel bad about it, because if you can do a great job out of the limited part of the focus that you can make, in the section, not the whole section, but a part of that section, that gives you tremendous confidence that by the time the course is completed, you have the ability, intelligence, or hard work on the right track, in the right direction, so that eventually you will be able to do justice to the whole section. So if you have done partial preparation, obviously the sections assessment also will be partial for you. Okay, these are the questions that you have raised. So I hope I have been able to answer them. And thank you very much for your time. I wish you all the best.